Every generation is summoned to answer the defining questions of its time. Questions about freedom, questions about justice, questions about democracy, questions about power, and the obligations of those entrusted with it. And across the long arc of American experience, progress has often depended upon those willing to ask what others would rather avoid, to challenge what others have learned to accept, to speak when silence would be easier, to build institutions capable of carrying the unfinished work forward. For more than 2 decades, Bankole Thompson has built a life and body of work around those responsibilities. His journey was shaped by extraordinary men whose lives were connected to the struggle for the soul of America. For almost 2 decades, Thompson was mentored by the late Reverend Dr. Bernard Lafayette Jr., the legendary civil rights leader, close associated with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and one of the world's foremost teachers of nonviolence. From Lafayette came the conviction that justice requires discipline, that courage carries a cost, and that every generation must accept responsibility for the unfinished work of freedom.
Thompson was also profoundly influenced by his late godfather, Ambassador George Haley, brother of the acclaimed Roots author Alex Haley, a distinguished lawyer, diplomat, and public servant. Haley graduated from Morehouse College in the class of 1949, where he took classes alongside the young Martin Luther King Jr.
From these 2 men came an enduring lesson. Achievement carries obligation. Influence demands responsibility. And the highest purpose of leadership is service. Thompson carried the moral inheritance into one of the democracy's most essential institutions, the free press. For nearly a decade, he served as editor of the Michigan Chronicle, Michigan's historic African-American newspaper. There, he helped shape public debate while continuing the long tradition of the black press willing to confront the questions that powerful institutions too often ignored. His leadership caught the attention of one of the nation's most respected newspaper executives, the late Jonathan Woolman, former executive editor of the Associated Press and editor and publisher of the Detroit News, described Thompson as a top-notch journalist whose insightful writing and editing have set a high standard. Under his leadership, the Michigan Chronicle has been a must-read. Woolman later recruited Thompson to write columns for the Detroit News. Today, as a twice-weekly opinion columnist, Thompson is known as Detroit's columnist of conscience. But the reach and consequence of his work extend far beyond the boundaries of any one city. Across more than 2 decades, Thompson has emerged as a distinctive national voice on the defining questions of American life: democracy, race, poverty, economic justice, corporate power, the responsibilities of leadership, and the widening distance between America's highest promises and the lived reality of its people. As one of the first black editors in the nation to conduct exclusive sit-down interviews with Barack Obama during his historic campaign for the presidency, Thompson documented a defining chapter in the American story. But his work has never been defined simply by the proximity to power. It has been defined by the independence to question it. What does leadership require? Whom does democracy serve? And how will history judge those entrusted with influence? Today, Thompson is a member of the National Press Club of Washington, D.C., one of the world's most influential professional media organizations, with approximately 2,500 members from the United States and around the world. And in 2015, he received a rare distinction for a living journalist when the University of Michigan Bentley Historical Library established the Bankole Thompson Papers. His work would be preserved for future generations of scholars, historians, and citizens, because journalism written with consequence does more than chronicle the present. It enters the historical record. In 2023, Thompson published Fiery Conscience, a work examining power, democracy, economic justice, and the moral obligations of leadership. The book is reviewed by Forbes and is listed in the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture. His latest book, Hope on the Mountain of Fear, calls individuals and institutions toward the moral courage necessary to confront inequality, defend democracy, and sustain hope. And in his forthcoming 2027 book, Bankole Thompson's Moral Questions, Frederick Douglass and the Soul of America at 250, he turns to one of the nation's greatest voices of conscience to examine the moral condition and future of the American experiment. In 2023, nominated by Dr. Lafayette, Thompson became the first journalist in history to serve on the National Board of Directors of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the historic organization of Dr. King. A journalist shaped by the movement had been entrusted with helping to steward its legacy. The moral inheritance had come full circle. And at the center of that journey stands the Pulse Institute. The independent anti-poverty think tank represents the institutional expression of Thompson's conviction. The belief that poverty must never become invisible, the economic injustice must never become acceptable, the powerful institutions must answer to the people they serve, and the leadership must always be measured by its impact on human dignity. For 250 years, the American experiment has lived with a fundamental tension: the greatness of its promise and the unfinished work of making that promise real. That work continues. America still needs voices willing to challenge power without fear, to confront injustice without surrender, to defend democracy with courage, and to remind the nation that economic justice is not simply a matter of politics or policy, it is measured of our humanity.